Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Shatliff On Sunday. Today is Sunday, January 29th, 2023. Special guest is Frank Shatliff, who is involved in a whole variety of various different events, not just in Prestwich, but around Manchester as well, where he's done stuff for creative living. You've also been organising road runs, and of course, you did one new toy appeal last year and for the last 3 successive years for Wood Street Mission, and we'll come on to that in just a few moments' time. On today's edition of Shatliff on Sunday, of course, we're remembering the victims of the Holocaust. It's 78 years since the liberation of Auschwitz. It was Holocaust Memorial Day on Friday. I watched a virtual National Holocaust Memorial Service on Thursday evening, which was very, very emotional, and everything always brings everything home to everybody. And of course, we think even more this year on Holocaust Memorial Day about what's happening in Ukraine to make sure that all hostility ends so that people can have their lives, their freedom, as they should do, and have peace. Let's take a look at the stories affecting the news on this Sunday afternoon. Going, gone. Nadine Sawali has finally been sacked from his position as Conservative Party chair. And don't forget that he's held a whole variety of various different positions within the Conservative Party within the last 6 months alone. He's been Chancellor, was it for a day, and various different things. There's so many things, even I, as a political anorak, can't remember the various different positions. One question that will be asked now of the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, is why it took so long and why he was given the position in the first place when he said he wanted to have a government with integrity on day one of the latest Prime Minister here in the United Kingdom. He has actually, Nadine Zawali, blamed the media after his sacking, but I will not make any comment in relation to that there. Also, the Australian Open has been won by Djokovic, and also some sad news, but wishing her very well. Dame Esther Ransom has revealed that she has lung cancer, but is also remaining optimistic as well. This week, of course, the West has acted by saying that they're going to be sending tanks to Ukraine, which is absolutely fantastic, obviously to help people, but there's so much more that can be done with raising money for the troops in Ukraine and also to help the evacuees who have come over to the United Kingdom and other countries around the world, which are doing everything they can to try and help the people of Ukraine. Today's reading in the Gospel was all about the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes which fulfill and surpass the 10 Commandments. They are not the Magna Carta, the new law, nor etched on stone, but written on our hearts. The Beatitudes are at the heart of Jesus' teaching. They are the fulfillment of the teaching of the Torah, the most beautiful manifesto of what it means to live on earth as a new creation. They reveal that the kingdom of heaven isn't about power, strength, land, wealth, or possession, but rather about what's within us. The kingdom of heaven is an attitude, a way of the heart, and a way of thinking and acting which is shocking, radical, and life-changing. The Beatitudes are said to reveal the face of Christ because he lived them perfectly. They are the pathway to happiness and true human fulfillment. Once again, I've not read any of that before just reading it just now, but of course, these things always have a striking meaning when you think about what's happening in the world today. Putin, the power he wants, creating evil, other politicians who tell everybody else what to do. They are supposed to be the servants of us, not the other way around. And that's going to bring us straight on to the first question I'm going to ask our special guest today. Not read all of this week, but The Bible Alive is available from Alive Publishing if anybody wants to get that on subscription. Right, okay. Now, I've mentioned there about various different charities and things, but one thing that you're very, very passionate on is the town village of Prestwich. You always have been throughout the 50 years that you've lived in this area. 50 years in September, but you've also had a history of being coming up here for a lot longer than that as well, haven't you?
Well, I've been coming up here since I was 14. I was invited to a friend of ours who lived in Simister, and I went there for the first time when I was 14. That would be 1958. And to me, where I lived in Cheetham, going to Simister was like the end of the Ellerbrick Road. Little white cottages, 2 pubs, little stores, post office. It was absolutely brilliant. And I kept going up there for years and years until eventually in 1973 we bought our own cottage there. And it was a fantastic place, there's no question about it. But what's happened over the last few months, it's an absolute disgrace, quite honestly.
You're talking about being places for everyone and
Yeah,
also various other stuff that's going on.
These politicians who, basically offer full control of Manchester, the 10 local authorities. Initially, it should have been 10 who actually wanted this. Stockport didn't, so they made it 9 places for everybody. So basically, we saw the other night a vote again in Bury, voting for this. If Bury would have voted again out to get out of it, which we know full well it wouldn't do because that's the type of people who have run the county at the moment, would it have changed again to make it 8? So there's too much shoving about and affecting people's lives and everything else. So no wonder. I mean, these politicians who are in control now across Manchester are calling these protest groups. But they're not protest groups at all, they're common sense groups. People who don't want to be pushed about like they are being. And it's simple, really. It's not on. You should listen to the people.
Now, one of the reasons as to why I slightly delayed from doing this today is because earlier on I popped very briefly into Prestwich to have a look because the councillors are holding, I was going to say like a roadshow, they're holding a discussion today where people can look at proposed plans, but they're stating this is just talking as it stands at the moment. It's not any final thing, so it's just at the talking stage about regeneration for Prestwich Village. Now, they are talking there and engaging with members of the public, or at least having conversations. I didn't get too close because I'm just getting over a nasty cough and cold, so I didn't want to get further infection. But what I'm saying is engagement and conversation regarding that. But has there been in terms of like another part, still part of Prestwich, Sinister, like you've mentioned there, Greenbelt land. I lived there for the first 31 years of my life. I've always said that what myself and my younger brother used to enjoy about being able to go for bike rides, go for walks, and all kinds of different things. I'd like my 2 nephews to still be able to appreciate that, but all that is going to go. So if they're having conversations regarding regeneration, it's just a common sense question that I'm putting out here, by the way. I'm not saying for or against, although I am against the idea of what's going on. But what I'm saying is if they're having conversation to discuss that, are the conversations going on, or have there been conversations going on over recent years in regards to this?
I've not got a clue, quite honestly, Ben, because it seems to me that the people who run the council at the moment have a system whereby they blank people out. Right. I've been blanked out for the last 5 years by Alan Quinn and others. Right. For people who walk past you who are supposed to represent you, to me, is absolute rubbish. I've tried to get information on trying to create this new event, what I'm trying to do now in St Mary's Park, but it's fell on deaf ears. No, there's no self-contact at all. I've emailed every councillor, including the MP. I've got half a message off the MP and the rest. The only actual message I got was from the Liberal. That's the only one I got. And it seems that, they've got this rule apparently, whereby only 2 events a year in St Mary's Park. What an absolute load of tripe.
So, apart St Mary's Park, for people that aren't from Prestwich, obviously people that are from the area, how do you know who watch this, and names can be mentioned, various different things, because we're trying to give information, not fake news, information. So, any criticism come direct to me, but I'm not being silenced by anybody. Okay?
I don't think you need to be that.
No, but I'm saying.
But
No, excuse me, I'll continue. What I was trying to say is St Mary's Park is a park area within Prestwich opposite Prestwich Club area. So you're saying there are only, what do you say, 2 or 3 events a year?
Well, I run the carnival for 7 years, from 2011 to 2018. And irrespective, I'll take myself, I thought I did a pretty good job. When I took over, it was skint, right? And there was a strong possibility of misbehaviour going on. Simple, right? So from having funds with nothing in it, virtually, to the first year, 2012, we had a good carnival, and they built the funds right up to make us progress further on.
Right.
And that's important.
Okay.
It's not, people might say it's profit. It's not profit. It's building up your carnival fund to make sure your carnival takes place every year.
Right.
Simple.
I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm also aware of a comment which has appeared, which has occasionally happens. It's nice that people are actually watching. Somebody saying we need to have a house building program in this country. Capital projects create jobs and in turn are good for growing the economy. Can I just make a point clear, by the way? And I can be objective and looking at both sides of a specific argument here, and this is something I do have control of. That's why I will say, whatever. I don't think anybody in any way, shape, or form is trying to say that there is not a problem with housing, not just in Greater Manchester, but in the country as a whole. There is an issue with housing. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. And affordable housing, which people can afford without having to scrimp and save, is something that is needed, not just here, but all over. So that is definitely needed. The concerns that people have is building on greenbelt land. Because how can a council or councils or a party, whoever, not just here, but around the country, start saying about wanting people to do things for the environment? There was talk about a congestion charge in Greater Manchester a few months ago. The city centre, I have no issue with that. The wider scope, I do have an issue with it. But what I'm saying is, how can you say about doing things for the environment on one hand and then taking greenbelt land on another? So yeah, I'm agreeing with what that comment there is saying. Yes, but things need to be negotiated because people need that free. People need that land to be able to breathe in, right? So that you don't end up with clogged voices like this, which is no good. So we need that greenbelt land. We do need houses. So that is.
Well, I think whoever's made that comment there is absolutely right. There's no question about that. No question whatsoever. Yeah. But the fact is this: there's brownfield, there's empty properties, there's empty shops, and there's sort of, if you actually take a tram from Manchester to Ann Square and take it through going towards Trafford, you will see the actual brownfield availability. That's in just in one section.
Exactly.
Right. So what should we be looking at is changing the laws
for compulsory purchase orders.
Right. We should change the laws whereby if people have been all sort of hogging land for so long, well, your time's up. Exactly. You're on brownfield site, you're not hogging that land anymore, we're going to utilise that land. Any empty property. And you'd be surprised, quite honestly, how much property or land is available if we look at that first.
Exactly.
And the thing is, the Greenfield Greenbelt is not ours. You've got livestock, you've got all everything about it.
The person's also just responded saying, yes, I agree with your point about Greenbelt land. Thank you. And no one's wanted to get into any arguments.
No.
Every point are all welcome.
What I'm saying, quite honestly, and this person is absolutely bang on. There's other ways. And because of the way things are, it's like 2023 now. And we should be looking at every single way of doing stuff without affecting anything else. In other words, like the countryside, livestock, children's play areas, you name it, they've got a right to be there as much as we've got a right to be here.
Exactly.
So you're right, you're absolutely right. but we must do it properly.
And also agreeing by saying you're spot on about brownfield land as well. Right, okay, now just going off this just for a moment, because of course we're saying about locally here, what I was going to say, because we come under the borough of Bury, Stockport that came out of places for everyone.
That's right.
So this is still not necessarily, it's still ongoing, even though it's kind of like in votes. And obviously, what I personally think what is actually needed is for, because I know for a fact, and I'm going to speak now from the other side, we're actually talking in relation to as to why they're actually wanting to do this, the Labour group in Bury, and they're saying about the fact that due to government figures for the sites, etc. And they're also saying that if they didn't go ahead and do it, then people would automatically build on this. What I would say is, and this is something I also said a couple of weeks ago on here as well, if they're actually saying that they think that even if they voted against this and didn't decide to do it, then it would still happen anyway, then what they need to do is to actually fight that cause themselves and actually say that they don't want to be doing this, they're only doing it because otherwise they feel that someone else will build this on anyway. That way it doesn't look like them as if the Labour group in Bury are the enemy to people, which, is how it might seem. But if they got a legitimate reason behind this, it needs to also, they also need to plug that as well. That way all sides can try and sort this out.
But the thing is that it's nonsense. If they're saying that, it's nonsense really, because people would have to put planning permission through into the council, right? Exactly. And they would have to plan it like they've already approved it. They've already approved it now, right? Which in theory is against. I mean, I've said it before. They call it protest group. I call it common sense group because they don't agree with what's going on, and that is their right, right? They elect people to represent them. But as it stands at the moment, once these people get into power, to represent themselves. Simple as that, really. And you're obeying people further up the ladder in political parties, right? And taking notice of them as opposed to the people who put them in where they are. And that is totally, totally wrong. It's simple.
If anybody from the Labour group in Bury, either one of the executive members, the leader of the council, or any councillor that represents Prestwich, Whitefield, or whoever, you're welcome to come and have a conversation on Ben Shatliff on Sunday, all in friendly terms, and that goes for any councillor or any politician here in the United Kingdom. If you wish to come on, have a discussion, you are indeed most welcome. Okay, I just want to move on because obviously, as well as I know there's also places for everyone, there's also, you've got an event coming up in July for the next road run. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to talk about a couple of other stuff because there's a lot of stuff that has been going on. I just want to go back to the top news story, which is obviously going to, well, it will affect in some ways, but the sacking of Nadeem Sawari. What's your take on that?
It should have been done when it first came out. Simple. Don't mess it about. If no ifs and buts, you're gone. Ta-da.
Do you think it's a sign of weakness in the current Prime Minister? I keep saying his current is going to go, but do you think it's a sign of weakness that he was actually given that position in the first place, considering there'd been issues beforehand when he ended up going?
Well, it's a combination of two things that I see. I mean, obviously, people's got their own views. I mean, he's probably getting a little bit. He's probably a little bit loyal to him. I'm giving him benefit of the doubt, but the fact is this: when it come out about having to pay a fine or whatever it is, I mean, look, this country needs running. It needs running properly. And quite honestly, I have not much confidence in both main parties. Quite honestly, it's as simple as that. You do not listen, right? And the country is in such a state. And although there's a political party in power since 2010, it's a combination of both parties. What's happening? Until they get their act together and start with possibly pulling together some way while they get this country straight. It's like toxic. It's toxic. The politics is not working.
And also, there's been another comment as well. Local councils are just sub offices of Westminster now. Yeah, I agree with that as well, because the fact is that once, I don't think that people, and I'm just saying this in any political kind of spectrum now, I'm not same with it, whichever party it is. But the fact is that at one stage people used to actually have, excuse the term, people used to have a pair of balls where they would actually, if they weren't happy about something, they'd say so, or they would challenge. They would even challenge whoever the government was, even if it was a Labour council, they challenge the Labour government, essentially obviously challenge the Conservative or whatever. But now it does happen, but it doesn't happen as much. And the fact is it should be more challenging. And I also think personally, we should be more working together rather than being at odds with one another. Then it's just, there's too much toxic politics. There was toxic politics back in 2010 and 2014, which is why I got rid of the political bubble completely, but stayed interested in politics. Now it's got even more toxic. And over the last couple of weeks, I've watched Prime Minister's questions, and I'm going to say this now just from a neutral kind of perspective. But some of the questions that I've heard Sir Keir Starmer asking at PMQs over the last couple of weeks, it's almost been like a similar style, but not as I would say not as bad as Jeremy Corbyn. It's okay getting to the bone of things, but it's got a bit too personal in some situations, in my own personal opinion. And it's not nice, especially if you lay in bed not feeling well, and then hearing some of the stuff. But it's gone too toxic in my own personal opinion.
I think in terms of what you're doing here, it should be more local, right? And concentrate on local stuff.
Well, we do a whole variety of different stuff, because obviously there are certain things which are going on a national, which I will not be quiet about. So it's that. And I just want to. You wanted to speak in regards to the road run which you're going to be doing in July. July?
Yeah, hopefully, July the 16th. I started this 3 years ago, and it's proved okay. But I did apply, or I did get in touch with Berry Council going back a couple of years ago, probably more than that, about 3 years ago, about doing this on St Mary's Park. Just half an email saying, and it got turned down straight away, and saying basically there's only 2 events allowed on St Mary's Park, which to me is an absolute rubbish, because the fact is, St Mary's Park is basically the hub of Prestwick Village. And so therefore we should be encouraging events to be taking place, provided that, the events are okay, and creating footfall coming into the town, and also new stuff, something that's not been there before. People they will enjoy it. But the fact is, to turn around and say there's only 2 events a year, to me, is absolute nonsense.
Maybe what you should do is get in contact again and just see what the outcome can be on there. But as far as you're aware, providing your own health and everything else, the event will be going on in July of this year.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I'll be promoting that and, going for it. Simple as that, really. Because the thing is, some of these vehicles are classic vehicles. I don't think the younger element or younger generation of our society even knew we had a British manufacturing industry going back in the day, but we did, and it's absolutely fantastic. The history is there, and people should look at it and take it on board and say, I never knew that.
And you can see some of that history when you go to the Transport Museum on Queen's Road, when you can see the buses and various different things there.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing is, this for museums, the vehicles are static. You don't move. But on a road run, you can actually see them moving.
Indeed.
That's it. And that's different.
Okay, just one other thing before we wrap everything up, but just once again, I won't name the person that's very kindly contributed today, but well, in case there was been it, I don't know, but you will be able to you can see the comments on the actual YouTube, but they've actually said there, the future of politics for me is how we help people within our community. Politicians of either colour are only interested in bankers and big business now.
Can we ask a question right here and ask people to get back?
Indeed, we can do. What's the question?
The question would be, I'm going to ask this question, do people in Prestwick or anywhere else believe that only 2 events should be taking place in St Mary's Park when it's a centre hub of the town. Should there only be 2 events taking place, or should the opportunity be there for more? Simple.
Okay. If you didn't want to respond to that, you can you can answer in the comments just there, or you can drop an email to me, inquiries@benjamin@shatliff.com, or you can leave a message via Twitter or Facebook. And thank you again for responding, saying yes, more. So yeah, definitely more needs to be happening. Right, thank you for coming in once again to obviously have a discussion. Today, I just want to end by, we discussed today about how politics can cause division in a whole variety of various different ways. And of course, I just want to go back to what I mentioned right at the very beginning of the programme, that Friday marked 78 years since the liberation of Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. We already know about the hostilities which are happening to the poor people of Ukraine at the moment. Let's also think as well about the ladies of Iran who can't walk freely and do like women can in the United Kingdom and other countries in the world. And of course, we know about the tragedies. We don't hear as much about it now, but the tragedies that go on in Syria. Politics causes divisions. I've always said it would be nice to have a world where the only disagreement is for people to try and make things which can be better for one another, but they're not actually arguing as such. So the final thought for this Sunday afternoon is, we may have disagreements, we may have fallings out, but let's never ever get to the stage where people are being murdered for what they believe in or what they agree with, because that is completely wrong. And let's think about all those people, not just in Ukraine, but also the victims of the Holocaust. Thank you very much indeed for obviously coming in once again to Frank Shatliff. Also, thank you very much indeed to the person that's very kindly contributed. I will be back next Sunday and every Sunday for Ben Shatliff on Sunday, sometimes around 12 o'clock. It just depends on the time. In the meantime, everybody, take care, keep well, and stay safe. Goodbye for now. Goodbye.